Welcome to Chesapeake Treasure. I'm Pete Lesher, Chief Curator for the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, and today we're going to be looking at a portrait of a steamboat named the Rock Creek that used to serve the Patapsco River coming down from Baltimore to Fairview Beach, sort of a picnic resort on the shores of Rock Creek, for which the Rock Creek Steamboat Line, which operated this steamboat named the Rock Creek, was named. Rock Creek was typical excursion steamboat of the day. We know that she's an excursion steamboat because her upper deck is completely open. There are passengers standing around, and there are no cabins on that deck. So that you would stand there. This was for a summer's day. You might ride on the steamboat down to this picnic ground, spend a few hours there, perhaps on a Saturday or a Sunday, and ride the steamer back up into Baltimore. A great way to escape all of the things that you might want to escape in the city during the summer, the heat and the smoke, and frankly, before, at the time this steamboat was running, Baltimore didn't even have a centralized sewage system, so maybe the odors of the city. Rock Creek was built in 1895, and she wasn't built for the steamboat line, but they acquired her in 1903, and for 4 seasons they ran her on that route down the Patapsco River to Fairview Beach on Rock Creek. The steamboat line was owned by a man by the name of George Efford, and George Efford, along with a partner, owned several steamboats as part of this steamboat line. And when he decided to part with this steamboat, when he sold the steamboat in 1906, he had the local ship portraitist in Baltimore, Otto Muhlenfeld, paint a portrait of his vessel, something to remember her by. This was absolutely typical that owners and captains and sometimes even mates of a vessel might like a souvenir, a good ship portrait of their vessel. And so it's done in all the conventions of ship portraiture. That is a complete side-on view, even the port side view. We see her slicing through the water. We get a good bow wave going on there. She probably really wasn't all that fast. And in the right background, because she was a vessel that operated just on a tributary of the Chesapeake, at least at this point in time, instead of having a deep sea scene with a ship in the background, what we see back there is a lighthouse. Probably the Lazaretto Point lighthouse that marked the way into Baltimore's basin, the what we now call the Inner Harbor. There's a replica of that lighthouse today. The one thing that makes me doubt whether this is indeed the Lazaretto Point is that there are lots of trees around it, and really Lazaretto Point was pretty built up, which is why they discontinued the use of the lighthouse. It was hard to make out the lighthouse's light from all the other lights of the city around it. There was another lighthouse that looked like that down at the mouth of the Patapsco River at Bodkin Point. And so this could be the Bodkin Point lighthouse, although that really had fallen out of use by this point in history. The Rock Creek was, so she operated in this short period of time. We know the history of this painting. Otto Muhlenfeld was a relatively young ship portraitist in Baltimore. He was born in 1871, and we have paintings of his right up to the year of his death, 1907. So this is painted just the year before his death. Died at the age of 35, the victim of alcoholism. Clearly this was done in one of his more sober moments, and it is a classic Otto Muhlenfeld portrait. We see the waves are absolutely identifiable as Otto Muhlenfeld's work. We see her cruising down the bay with the American Jack at the fore, a couple of decorative flags right behind the pilot house, a banner with her name, Rock Creek, just in case you can't read the carved name boards on the bow and on the pilot house. The classic eagle carving surmounts the pilot house. A wonderful ship portrait that evokes how people enjoyed themselves on the Chesapeake Bay. So George Efford, the owner of the steamboat line, had this painted. It descended in his family to his son Charles Efford, and it was his grandson Michael Efford that gave this painting to the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum just about a decade ago. a wonderful piece for which we have a complete history. This was one of the 50 objects chosen for a broad reach 50 years of collecting, and you have just 2 more weeks to be able to see this exhibition before it comes down in preparation for our next exhibit. So we wanted to highlight one last piece out of a broad reach. Thank you for joining me for A Chesapeake Treasure.